Alright, the start of day 2. Slightly bigger group, there's 10 of us today. A mix of bikes from a 790, which is really nicely tricked out. 500s, mix of 250, Yamahas, and I am the only two-stroke running Moose, and everyone keeps commenting on my wobbly back tire. Alright.
Hey, welcome back. So this is day 2 of a 3-day ride down in the southern part of Israel. Let me drop a map here for you so you know where we're at. Okay, you can see here down in the southern part of that map, or the bottom there, that other blue chunk, that is where we're riding today, but last night we stayed right around here, which is Ronnie's place. And on the way down there, there's another landmark that's pretty interesting. It's the Ashalem Power Station, which is a giant solar power station. Here's a picture of it. Alright, let's get on with the ride. So like I said, there is about 10 of us out on today's ride, a whole mix of bikes from 790 down to my little two-stroke. And this is going to be a good fun ride through the desert with some pretty spectacular views. Now, calling the desert pretty is obvious to those that have been in the desert, but if you've never been and all you're seeing is gravel and sand and these little scrub brushes, well, let me tell you, there's a lot more that you don't see until you stop and pause. Those small flowers in the sort of what looks like a barren landscape and the life that you see out there. And for us two-wheeled riders, this kind of stuff. Now, my little 250 is pretty happy in this stuff. The rougher it gets, the happier it's going to be for me because it's light and it's easy to ride. But some of these big open spaces where you can really crank up the speeds, I think a big thumper is the bike that you want.
This is for you, especially for you.
Yeah, the little 250 is pretty easy to ride on this stuff, so it was definitely for me. And this kind of stuff here, it doesn't look like much on the camera, but it's kind of steep, and it's got a hard rock surface underneath and talc powder on top of it. So kind of like a shuffleboard table, if you don't get a little momentum, it's going to be hard to get traction mid-hill. And because it's off-cambered and kind of wallowed out from the trucks that come up through here, it's hard if you're a little bit vertically challenged, we'll say, Ronnie, to get a foot down. So you really need to carry some speed or get a little help from your friends. Alternatively, you can just try and send it, but on the big bike it gets a little harder, so it comes down to line choice.
There we go, a little more speed, a little more speed. Beauty.
There you go, good line choice, steady throttle, and up you go. And we're going to see that repeated here, the next two bikes coming up.
Wow.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah, didn't expect that.
This is the big crater.
So I'll pop up the actual name for it here on the screen, and you can try and pronounce that, but it translates to the big crater, which is 5 by 10 kilometers, and it is a big crater, and it is an erosion crater.
The trail crossing all the way there, and there's like all kind of red and yellow and all the sand. Wow, pretty awesome. The descent is also nice. There's like a nice drop.
Okay, so we call this the big crater, although it's not the biggest. Super windy up here. into the valley, which will be pretty cool, and we can follow this all through. And apparently the textile factory, which you can't see, but it's a little white blob way out in the distance, is not a textile factory. It's something else, but we don't know. You're not allowed there. It's like Area 51.
Well, turns out we do know what's there, and it's the Negev Nuclear Research Facility. And, well, I'll stay away from the politics on it, but it is Israel's nuclear research facility, and it is highly guarded, and it is definitely a no-go zone.
All right, big downhill now. It's rough. Don't want to get out of control.
This is definitely the kind of terrain that the 250 likes. It's a TE 250i, it's a 2020 model, and I didn't change anything on the suspension. It sprung as it came from the factory. I was the second owner of this bike, but I gotta say, the suspension worked really well over just about everything.
That's pretty cool. It is.
I just want to get this over with.
As a group, we got down the hill without any issues, but I suspect there was some underwear sucking going on and some handlebar crushing happening. But for me, it wasn't too bad, because the little 250 just kind of eats up all this kind of terrain, and it's an easy ride. Anyway, let's move on. Just need to work our way down this last little bit of a hill, and we'll be down into the bottom of the crater. Once we're down there, hopefully the wind lets up and the terrain gets a lot easier. Okay, this is the last of the hills, I think, other than the kind of rolling terrain that's going to be in the bottom of this crater. So the pace is going to pick up, and there's going to be some pretty nice views. I think this is what I like about the desert. You look at those big expansive views and the empty kind of sense of nothing, and you just feel, I don't know what it is you feel, but it feels good, it feels right. maybe it's that sense of freedom you get when you're out here, because you get on the bike, things are just flowing along, you're picking your lines, avoiding the worst of the rocks, playing on the terrain a little bit, but everything else falls away. And time is one of those things that falls away. And of course, the day's going to pass and the weekend's going to end, but right now, in this moment, it's just irrelevant. The day just goes on and you're just in it. And then of course there's the playfulness of it all out here, and there's some bikes way up ahead that have gotten away from us, and I kind of want to chase them down. And in a second you're going to see those bikes. You can probably see the dust trail up ahead, but they're going to come over that ridge line. But I do chase them down, and I do catch them. Though in the in-between of trying to catch up to them, it really stops mattering. I'm not racing anyone, and I just enjoy riding by myself for a little while, kind of in between the gap of the lead bikes and the middle bikes. And that's okay, because it just feels right. Well, you know what they say, if you're not making dust, you're eating dust. And right now we're going to be eating a little bit of dust from these trucks, but not for very long. It is funny though, as much as I was talking about how the emptiness of the desert is appealing, it's never truly that empty. And it kind of reminds me of a passage in Farley Mullet's book, The Boat Who Wouldn't Float. And he's talking about going out into the woods there in Newfoundland to answer the call of nature, and inevitably some child will pop up and ask you, "How you doing, bye?" Having got clear of the trucks, we go on down the road a little bit further, but we pull up in what I can only describe as a bit of an oasis. There's some underground water, in fact there's lots of underground water, but we find a little spot to stop and have a little something to eat.
With water, and you can go underground cave and you swim inside. I go in, I don't go in. And you dive?
Well, I'm not doing a very good job videographing this part here, but here it is. There's these sinkholes like this that hold water, and there's some shade for us to get under, so we do that and we have a bit of lunch. But then it's time to move on again.
Must be a popular little spot here.
So there's a couple things of note here. You can see all these rocks that are sort of delineating the track. I think this is probably protected area, and they usually put up these rocks to keep people on the trail to prevent further erosion damage. But generally speaking, that's where I've noticed that these rocks get piled, is when you're trying to keep you on the trail. The other thing is that how we're zigzagging in around the trucks, it's exactly the same way you ride when you're on the road with traffic. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of this video, this being part 2 of 3. There's one more part to come. So from here, we ride back to the trucks, we load up and head to our campsite down by the Dead Sea, and then the following day we head back out into the desert, which is going to look quite a bit different than this part of the desert. Hope you're enjoying us, and we'll see you in the next one.